A winter morning in the last big trees of Madagascar. The giant lemurs are waking up. As the mists lift, their strange cries echo through the primeval forest. These giant lemurs called Indris are threatened because their habitat is being destroyed. Indris eat over 200 species of plants, and so they're condemned by the disappearance of the island's biodiversity. But someone is doing something about it. A man who has understood that the conservation of nature can also be the means for economic development. In Madagascar, the crops are planted in burnt fields. Yet every day thousands of acres of forest disappear. In Voiman, the nature reserve he manages, Olivier Bérat was able to convince the Madagascan government to give all the land to the farmers. This stopped the flow of itinerant croppers and protects what remains of the primeval forests. Another effect is to save the lemurs. Because if all the plants in the forest disappear, the lemurs at the top of the food chain will disappear too. 50 species of lemurs live in Madagascar. Although adults are protected by international conventions, they're often killed for food. Olivier Bérat believes that it's not enough to protect them from poachers or simply to create a wildlife reserve. Lemurs are the guardians of an earthly paradise, and to save them, the natural biodiversity has to be protected too. Olivier recruited a team of young Madagascan women, engineers and agronomists to help him. Chantal, Sophie and Ravenal met up with all the villagers to forge an atmosphere of mutual confidence. Among the poorest people in the world, they were very interested by the idea of collecting plants. It took 2 years to develop real collaboration. The team had to convince the village chiefs, prove that they would not lose their traditions, and that this activity could be financially interesting. Using the precepts of equitable trade, Olivier always pays the local populations first. In our policy of using local populations to manage the ecosystem, the valorization of medicinal plants is interesting for 2 reasons. First, it generates income for them. Second, it valorizes these plants and adapts it to traditional knowledge. Here people have regained confidence in the use of plants and are proud to preserve their cultural heritage and their forests. Olivier encouraged the locals to set up small distilleries throughout the region. Before starting distillation, the first step consists in working with the traditional Madagascan doctors, the healers. We observe how they use the plant, and then we check that the plant does have aromatic properties. The next step is the laboratory phase, and this is followed by local distillation, where Chantal is responsible for standardizing distillation conditions. For example, the essence is distilled for 3 hours and not 3.5, in order to ensure that in the end, the product meets industrial specifications. Products must always have exactly the same chemical compositions. The innovative research program he's been running for 5 years is starting to succeed, and he recently convinced a major French laboratory to participate in his field work. A lot of experience in valorizing plant remedies in international markets. One of them was the essential oil distilled from Ravensara aromatica, which grows in the local forests. Ravensara aromatica was used after the 9/11 attacks in New York City. Therapists from all over the world are working on plants from the Madagascan forests. The oil from this plant is fantastic in fighting stress, as well as being a marvelous remedy for respiratory tract diseases caused by viruses. 10,000 kilometers from the laboratories, Olivier returns to the Madagascan paradise he's fighting so hard to protect. To enable the number of lemurs to increase, parts of the reserve must be replanted with trees. I always feel a personal loss when a lemur disappears. You have to remember that every acre that is burnt to the ground destroys the lemur's habitat. Hundreds of medicinal plants and hundreds of fantastic animals, marvelous insects and frogs. That's dramatic. It's unacceptable. We have to stop this wanton destruction. Everyone can do something. We can all change the way we live, perhaps live more simply and contribute to general happiness, or by protecting all the wonders of nature, like lemurs and trees. There's nothing more magnificent than these living cuddly toys. We must protect our environment for future generations, and then they'll pass it on intact to the generations after them. It is feasible, and it can be done. If everyone does a little and is committed to respecting the things and people that exist, our world will survive. It'll recover its natural balance and ensure the well-being of everyone.